I think we are live with Michael, my friend that does not live too far away from me. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for being on. I'm excited about this one. When I started, you probably won't believe this, but when I started this, you were one of the first that popped in my mind. I was like, I always have great conversations with you every time we see each other at the British Car Meet or some Cars and Coffee, and I'd love to hear more about your mini Rosebud.
We've bumped into each other several times, I know. When did we first meet? Was it at Cars and Coffee in Santa Barbara?
I think so. I was trying to
Oh,
think back, and I think that was the first official time because I remember saying to my wife when I drove up, when I pulled up, and I was like, "Hey, I know that car," and I like whipped out my phone and I was like, "Yeah, that's Rosebud." It was a famous. I don't know. I don't even remember how I found you on. I believe it was Facebook or your. And we'll get into the blog later on. But yeah, I think that was the first time. It was the Santa
yeah,
Barbara, like in 2019, because that's like right when I first moved here.
sure. Yeah, I remember.
Funny, funny, funny. So again, thanks for being on. I appreciate it. And but yeah, let's kind of dive into it. I really want to know. And like I said, I've read your blog throughout the years, and I think Rosebud is your first and only mini, and that might have changed by now. But what attracted you to classic minis? What kind of got you into it? Was it something that you always wanted, or did you kind of stumble upon your current mini?
No, actually, I remember the exact date, time, and place that I first discovered minis, and I wanted one instantly. It was the summer of 1967. I was living in the San Fernando Valley, and cruise night on Van Nuys Boulevard was the big deal. And I was
Right.
16. I just gotten my license. I had a pocket full of cash. I had a bunch of after-school jobs for years and years. I bussed tables, I cleaned pools, I mowed lawns. So I had some adult money to buy a first car. And we were cruising Van Nuys Boulevard in a friend's car, and we were just making the last loop for the evening. That's down to Ventura Boulevard. Then you hang a U, and then you go back on Van Nuys. And right at the end of Van Nuys Boulevard at Ventura was a used car lot called Cars of the Stars, and it was officially Studio City. So there was a Hollywood vibe kind of in that area. So this used car lot was full of you know Porsche 356s and lots of MGs and a couple of big Rolls Royces and Bentleys and things. A couple of big domestic Cadillacs too.
Mm-hmm.
These were owned by studio people typically. And there was a Mini Cooper S, almond green, old English white top. I can't remember the kinds of tires and rims. I'd never seen one, and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. So a few months later, when all my friends were buying the Mustangs and the Camaros and things, I wanted the Mini, and I asked my dad. I said, "Hey, I found my first car, and it was the price of a new Mustang. I think it was $3,400. And you could have gotten a Mustang GT with a 289 and for the same price. New.
Yeah.
This was used. This car was this Mini was maybe 6 or 8 months old. It was owned by the drummer of the Grassroots
Oh,
music
really?
on the charts at the time. And my dad said, "Are you crazy? A 60 horsepower used British car for the same amount of money as a Mustang." So
Hey, come on. The S had to have more then, huh?
the lot guy was so proud of the fact that it was a real S, and it meant nothing to me. I just thought it was a cool car.
Right, right.
Since then, I've always wanted a Mini. And of course, I bought the Mustang, and I bought the other muscle cars through the years. But I did buy in my early 20s. I did buy an Austin America, which is what's the British equivalent, an MG 1100 maybe. I can't.
Probably, yeah.
It's a two-door sedan, but it looked kind of like the Mini, and so I put fog lamps on it and a big megaphone exhaust pipe. And that was the end of the mods, and I thought that was my Mini Cooper. But I've always wanted one, and so I finally found one. I was actively looking for one for about 5 years, and I was in Kansas City on a business trip, and I went down a residential street, and there was a Mini sitting at the curb. I put my business card under the windshield wiper blade, and my message light in the hotel room was blinking by the time I got back to my room. And within a week, it was on a flatbed heading to Santa Barbara. So
Wow. So you were
that
on a
was,
business trip in Kansas City
I
and you just
was.
saw one.
I did. I
What
did.
year was this? Because I don't know how long you've had the Mini.
I've had Rosebud about 15 years, so it would have been 15 years ago.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say yeah, because I was like, I think you've had it for quite a while. So,
I have, yeah.
wow, that's a cool story.
Well, that's,
Was it for sale or you just saw it and
I
you put
just
a
saw it,
note?
just put my car. Yeah, yeah.
That's
But,
fantastic.
but that's the story behind the name Rosebud. Is I always tell people it's the sled, not the flower. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Citizen Kane, but the the wealthy hero of the movie, kind of an anti-hero. Uh, well, he was William Randolph Hearst was the character, and so
Okay.
he had this castle, and he was one of the richest men on earth at the time, and lived a very unhappy life, but extremely wealthy. And his dying words were Rosebud. And so the press all ran out and tried to uncover what the meaning of that was. And it turned out it was a sled that he had when he was a little kid. That was the only thing he ever wanted was that sled. And so I thought, my car's red. I've always wanted a Mini. That's Rosebud.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And that was, obviously I was going to ask about that at some point, but I thought it had some sort of meaning with red, but that's the obvious answer. But the deeper meaning, that's super cool. I like that story. I just want to circle back because you mentioned the cruise nights, cruising up and down the boulevard, and that's something that I wish I was like in that generation doing that. And I just want to, how cool was it actually? Because I sometimes when I go over there and we're driving up and down, I always tell my wife, I'm like, man, imagine like back in the 50s or 60s and driving up and down here with the
Right.
neon lights and the cars and just cruising at night, how cool that would be. And she was like, I don't know if that'd be that cool. I was like, it sounds really cool. Was it actually that cool?
It's hard to say. It certainly seems that way now. Um,
Right.
but I suspected there were some downsides to it, but I just can't remember what they were because it's been so long. It just all seemed cool to me, McDonald's and Bob's Big Boy were the big hangouts, and
Right.
you got the tray at the door with your burger on it at Bob's, and
Uh-huh.
those hamburgers were
I
15.
mean, I guess if I really stretched the truth a little bit when I was in high school, me and my friends on whatever Friday, Saturday nights, we would cruise, but it was like, we would end up at, Taco Bell or
Yeah,
whatever the heck it was, you know? It
yeah.
was the
This was
same kind of thing. We didn't know we were actually doing it, but I guess so. I mean, that was fun times.
this was about a 5 mile strip on Van Nuys Boulevard, which was the official cruising spot, and it was
Hmm.
bumper to bumper. I mean, the light would turn
Yeah.
green, and you couldn't move. It just and that went
For
on.
those not in the United States that maybe not know what we're talking about, what was that? I'm drawing a blank on the name of the movie that kind of followed the characters and the kids were driving their cars up and down.
Well,
Is it?
well,
I'm sure there's been several.
the TV version of that was Happy Days, but I can't remember the movie. The movie
I
was
I
I,
could be completely off. Was it American Graffiti or
yes, that was it.
is that it?
That was a big one. Yeah, American Graffiti.
Yeah. And
But,
so everyone go check out those two things: Happy Days, American Graffiti,
yeah,
and it just looks like so much fun. Just
yeah.
I don't know, bippity bopping down the boulevard.
It was fun. It was Saturday night, a little bit on Friday night, and then Wednesday night for some reason. And Wednesday was
Hmm.
almost as big as Saturday. And all the car clubs had their own places that they would park, or the high schools. They
Right.
ours was Praisewater Mortuary. That was a big mortuary on Van Nuys Boulevard. It had been there 100 years, and
Right.
the city had grown up around it, and they had this big, deep lawn and big trees, and it was just a perfect place to park in front of.
So you ended up getting the Mustang, and you cruised it up and down the boulevard. Were you a car guy? Obviously, you were interested in cool cars. It's piqued your interest. But were you tinkering with them? Were you hot rodding them back then, or what were you doing?
No, no, my dad was not terribly mechanically inclined. He would hire a carpenter to hang a picture on the wall, and so he didn't have a toolbox, and he had a kitchen drawer with a screwdriver and a pair of pliers in it. That was the toolbox. So no, I was not a tinkerer, and it seemed like all my friends were. All their dads, taught them how to. And I remember my next door neighbor being so proud of his first skinned knuckles. Literally, he just look, I got skin knuckles from working on.
Knuckle busted.
Yeah, right. But no, the Mini was the first car I really started wrenching on.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, there were a couple of Volkswagens earlier on, but yeah,
Right. Right.
that was the first one.
So you got the Mini in basically just on a whim in Kansas City. Bought it then, no negotiating really, or you bought it while you were there and then had it shipped back.
I did, yeah, yeah. I think it was. I think he wanted $5,000 for it, and
Wow.
it was it was rough. It was dented. Uh, the interior was gone. The motor was rough, but it was, as far as I could tell, as rust-free as any car I've ever seen, an older car. And so that's what I ended up with, is just a rust-free shell. And I thought I would take 2 or 3 or 4 years to build upon it, and I didn't do that. I was traveling a lot for business at the time, and so I wasn't having a chance to do anything on the car. The car was
Hmm.
covered in my garage at home, and but I'd be in a hotel room in another state with high-speed internet access and a credit card. And so I was buying stuff, just envisioning in my mind all these, and I way overspent. I way overpurchased. I mean, I'd find a set of wheels and I'd buy them, and a week later I'd find a better set of wheels and I'd buy it. But finally, when I retired, I went home and I got to my garage and I had four different sets of seats. I had two sets of tires and wheels. I had just a bunch of crap that looked cool at the time, but I think my tastes evolved over the 2 or 3 years. I mean, I was
Hmm.
buying Aero stuff, uh,
Right.
chin um,
Spoilers and stuff.
spoilers
Lips.
and diffusers and just ridiculous flares. And that was the look I was going for. But after reading and watching the internet, watching YouTube, I just my taste changed. So I sold a bunch of crap for pennies on the dollar on eBay, and I ended up with what I ended up with.
I think that happens a lot, especially with minis in particular. I haven't dabbled in too many other car modification worlds, but the Mini has so many options, so many variants, so many flares, so many wheels, so many everything
Right?
that I think when you get bit by the bug right off the bat, especially if it's like your dream car, it's so easy to go down that rabbit hole of
Yeah.
which wheels do I want, but those wheels go with this flare and doesn't go with this tire, and which seats do I want, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've seen that so many times, and I think we're all guilty of it in some sort of way, but I was similar. I think I had a similar conversation with you when we first met. Was my car is rough in general, but it was barely put together, and I was like, I'm driving it to Santa Barbara to that Cars and Coffee, and it was falling apart, and you were like, which direction do you want to go? Because it came with 13s, and I didn't have any different wheels at the moment. I was like, I want to get the 10s and kind of keep it, somewhat classic looking, maybe a cafe racer, and you're like, yeah, it's good idea, like, and you kind of told me how you went with the wide flares and this and that. So that's funny. It's easy to go down that rabbit hole for sure.
Well, I'm proud of you for driving your car early on as much as you did. I mean, your recent road trip. How many miles did you put on your
Just
car?
about 3,000.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that takes courage and a lot of luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Surprisingly, I obviously had some hiccups, but, it kept trucking, always figured it out. Never took more than half an hour, I guess.
Yeah, right, right. I did 1,300 miles on my car one time, round trip. I went to Mini Mania's annual get together,
Okay.
and so it was yeah, it was about 1,300 miles round trip, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's a hike up there.
I
It's
thought,
fun. I mean, it's like I said, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, obviously, you don't want to think about what the worst is, but in general, like, okay, the car
back,
breaks down, I gotta tow it.
come back on a flatbed with a $2,500
Right.
bill. That's the worst.
Exactly. Exactly. That's funny. So, I don't know if any, knows. I don't think you have Instagram, do you? So you're kind of under
Yeah,
wraps.
yeah.
I like to let people know some of these cool cars exist that aren't flashing on Instagram all the time. Although I do like looking at cars on Instagram. But for those that don't know, describe Rosebud. I know I think in your words, kind of a race street build, and it's super cool, super clean, and like you say, you spent a lot of money on it. So, what kind of modifications is it, and all that kind of
Well,
stuff?
I can't remember the flares, but they're modest flares. I've got 10-inch wheels.
They kind of look like wooden picket flares, I
Yeah,
think,
they do, but I think
but they're not.
they're not, and I think those have external fasteners, I
Oh,
believe,
okay, maybe. Yeah, these don't.
and
Yeah.
I don't know, but they're fairly wide. They almost cover the tire, uh, which is good. I've got springs. I've got springs and high lows. I'm real happy with the springs. The only other and here's the thing. I've ridden in one other Mini in my life, so I've got no standard to compare my car with anyone else. I don't know how anyone else's cars ride. I don't know what the power feels like. I don't know the grip. I don't know the sound level inside. My car, my car's noisy. I want, I used to hear speed shop guys say, "Be careful what you wish for." You don't want to drive a race car on the street. And I thought, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, right.
yeah, but I get it now. Rosebud is just about as racy as and still streetable, but it's loud. It's loud inside. All the rubber mounts and all the bushings and all that's all metallic now in Rosebud. So all that sound absorption, all that vibration absorption just goes right to the driver's seat. I've got,
Mine's similar too, because I'd never driven in one, never ridden in one.
right?
And when I first got it going, I was like, damn, this thing is loud inside. And granted, I don't have a headliner, so I was like, all right, there's some vibration from it. Come to find out later, my subframe mounts up front are solid, and there's a bunch of like
Oh,
poly bushings, so it's like it rattles real hard.
yeah. All the stock original rubber lines and things now are stainless and copper and they rub and they vibrate. And I don't have a headliner. I've got a carbon fiber roof, and it's like a drum head. I mean it's loud. I've got
What
diamond
kind of?
on the floors,
Okay.
up into the firewall on the inside, but it's still clanky and loud exhaust and it's
What kind of engines in there?
it's a 1380. I had it built by Seven Enterprises, and
Okay.
it's looking at the specs. it looks like a race car engine. I mean, I spent a lot of money on that motor. And I just replaced the clutch just a couple of weeks ago, and I knew I had a light flywheel. And when I looked at that flywheel, I mean, it's more air than it is flywheel.
Wow.
And as a result, it stalls easy. I mean, if you're not careful at the green light, when the light turns green, you stall it.
You gotta give it the beans.
You got to give it the beans, and it barely idles. It idles at about 11, 1200 RPM. Anything other than that, it'll run for 90 seconds and then stall. So it's and if I when I the few times I let somebody drive it, I have to give them 10 minutes of instruction. And I drove a friend of mine's street race car a while ago. It was a Trans Am Falcon. And he didn't have to tell me anything. I just got in it and I drove it. It was fine.
Right.
But I
Right.
tell people, how to shift my car and where the clutch releases and engages and what kind of RPM to bring it to before you let the clutch out. And that's a bit annoying. I was watching something on YouTube. I forget the show, but he was interviewing Nick Swift, um,
Okay.
and the British mini guy, speed shop guy,
Yep.
fabulous mini race car driver.
Yep.
And,
I'm trying to secret. You're the first to know. I'm trying to get him on the show.
was that right? Yo, I'd love to watch that show. I love
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
he's,
He's cool.
yeah, he is very cool. But the host asked him, he said, so these race engines that you build, he said, how many horsepower are you getting? He said, oh, we're getting about 110, 115 horsepower. And maybe he said 120 even. And I thought, I'd like 120 horsepower. And then the host said, "How about the longevity of the engine?" He said, "Oh, they're really built. They last a long time. We get 10 to 15 hours on a motor.
Yeah, I was gonna say like a couple races probably.
Maybe I don't need 120 horse. Yeah,
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, because you say yours is like a race street build, but it's got like a fuel cell and all that too, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah. It's got a fuel cell and it's got twin SUs. It's got a pretty lumpy cam. Um, a funny story about the cam. I needed a new starter,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, well, I've got a high compression engine. I'm going to need a really torquey high end starter.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mechanic, my actually Seven Enterprises, said, not really, because your static compression is lower than stock because of the overlap of the cam.
Mm.
You've got both valves open. You got the exhaust and the intake valve open at the same time at low RPM, and so you really don't have um, that much compression when you're starting it. So you don't really need a high torque starter. But of course, I bought a high torque starter. It's a little,
Right? Yeah, it's like
right?
go
So
with your gut, right?
yeah, it's overbuilt, but I'm loving it. That 1,300 mile road trip I took was brutal. I mean, the seats are hard and the car's loud, and it was 105 degrees, and I was taking I-5 back home, and there was like this lump in the freeway that just the resonance of it was such that the car was just going like this at 65 miles an hour. So I was beat
Right.
when I got home, and I thought, well, okay, I got it out of my system, where I can, give it a break for a while. And the next day I got up and I thought, I think I'll go for a drive. It's just,
It's so contagious.
it
Yeah.
is, it really is.
Every night I stopped on that road trip, and they were long days. Hour. The first day, I think I was in the car for 15 hours because it was that heat wave of like 115, 120 or whatever it was, and I drove through the desert like an idiot.
Right.
So I had to keep stopping so I didn't overheat. And every day I was like, oh man, how am I gonna do
Got it.
this? And I'd wake up and I'm like, let's go. This is fun. Woo!
You know,
That's incredible.
I'll be up driving in the mountains all day, and I'll come home, and uh, my wife will say, "We need some milk," and I'll say, "I'll get it." You know, take the car
Because
out.
you pretty much daily drive Rosebud,
I do.
don't you?
I drive it every day, every day. Yeah.
Wow,
Um,
that's incredible.
Not far, it's I put about
Yeah,
20 miles, 25 miles a day on it, but I literally drive it every day. Yeah.
that's fantastic. That's I love it. I want to get into a little bit. Where did like Poser Motorsport come from, and what's the meaning behind it? I love it.
Well, yeah, it was as you know, there's tremendous interest in these cars. You can't go to the gas station and fill your car with gas under 20 minutes because someone wants to talk. I was on my way to the hospital to have my appendix removed. I had to be at the hospital for my appointment, and I stopped and got gas, and I was late to my appendicitis appendectomy because the guy wanted to talk. So I
Because you
thought,
drove your classic
yeah,
mini race car to get your appendix out.
exactly. I'm scheduled for surgery in 15 minutes, but we can talk. I got plenty of time.
I love it.
So I thought I do a Facebook page and post my videos. I've got four um, GoPro cameras around the car, so I often take videos of my driving through the mountains and a couple of track days and things. And so I post those on the Facebook page, and it's called Poser Motorsports because it's not really a race team. In fact, it says it's not really a race team. It's just a guy in a car.
Yeah, I was gonna say that about me says a fictional auto racing team.
Exactly.
That's awesome. No, but it's really awesome for those that don't follow it. I think you have quite a few people that follow it on Facebook, but like he said, he posts some videos of some of his racing or his canyon runs and little blog posts, whether it's you changing your head gasket or updating your shocks or a lot of cool little things like that, cool little write-ups. But was that like always the plan to kind of just make like a blog or something just to document Rosebud, or
Yeah.
it just kind of came out of nowhere?
Well, no, it evolved, and there wasn't a grand plan, but I wanted to strike a balance between a real high-end racer guy that's been, wrenching on cars his entire life
Right.
to a guy that, doesn't know where the battery's located. And I fall somewhere in the middle, closer to the battery guy than the racing guy. And I just wanted to strike that happy medium of somebody like myself that doesn't know a lot about mechanical things, but is learning. And
Mm-hmm.
I learned something like that, like the static compression of the.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know that's why lumpy cams were lumpy because all the valves were opened at the same time. I didn't know what valve overlap was.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things like that. I used to think that I used to fill my tires on all my cars, performance cars, uh, up to the maximum tire pressure on the sidewall. I thought that gives you the best grip and the smoothest ride. And I did a 3-day driving class several years ago with Rosebud, and I came in with I don't know 38 psi, 40 psi, rock hard. You just hit the reflectors on the freeway, and your fillings get loose. And, the instructor said, "God, your tires are just way hard. There's way too much air," and he let out about half the pressure, got it down to about 23 pounds,
Wow.
2 pounds, and he said, "You see these little marks on the tire?" And they were little diamonds, little triangles, so 8 or 10 or 12 of them around the sidewall of the tire, and they're down about an inch or two from the tread. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, "There's scuff marks." And he said, "What you want to do is you want to have your tire have as low pressure as possible without those scuff marks coming into play. As soon as the scuff mark, when you're going around a corner, starts hitting the top of that triangle on the sidewall," he said, "that's the perfect pressure for this track, for this day, for this temperature." So I
Hmm.
immediately dropped the tire pressure down, and it makes a smoother ride, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
all those things that racers know, and I don't know. And
Yeah.
now I know, and I post that kind of stuff on Facebook. I've got 12,000 followers.
That's what I was gonna say. You have quite a few
It's
on there.
oh,
That's a lot.
I know. My wife said, "You've got to monetize this, man. You've got to sell some keychains or T-shirts or something." So I posted. So I have a coffee mug, a T-shirt, and some decals.
Oh,
And
do you? I was gonna say because yeah, I like the
it
logo. It's
was
fun.
yeah, it was kind
I
of joke.
relate with it. I feel like a lot of mini guys relate with it too because it's like I don't know if this like again I've only been a mini guy, so I don't know other other car markets I guess.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of people that get into minis they get into it because it's a cool quirky car, but they can tinker with it and it's pretty user friendly or it's easy to learn on. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's fairly simple.
Seems like
Yeah, and I feel like that relates to a lot of people.
well,
We all want to be race car drivers.
I have never after 5 years with 12,000 followers, I have never sold a single T-shirt or mug or decal.
Let's let's sell some. Let's sell
I
some here, dude.
don't know. I don't want to. It's yeah. I realize I don't want to do that. But I thought, God, my wife said you could sell $5 bills to for $20 to somebody on a Kotowski. And I said, maybe the sales link is broken. I don't know, but I've never sold a single thing. But don't.
Is there?
So let me say, don't buy anything. It's overpriced, and I don't want to sell it.
I don't even see a link on there. That's your problem.
Maybe that's the problem. That's just
Maybe that's the problem because I would buy the little poser motorsport sticker to slap on my window for
yeah.
sure.
Oh, you don't want that. I'll give you one.
Deal. Okay. Well, so I know that you've done some racing before. Is there a certain track? Because was it wasn't there like a go kart track here, like by me
Yeah.
that closed down that you used to be able
Uh,
to race your mini at?
yeah, that was Jim
Yeah,
Hall
Jim Hall.
Raceway. And Jim Hall Jr. It was the track owner, and his father, Jim Hall Sr., um, was a pioneer. In fact, he's considered to be the father of aero. He did
Mm.
the Chaparral sports cars, the Chaparral Chevys, 427s, and um, uh, with a big wing on the back, and the wing was adjustable. Then he did what
Hmm.
was called the vacuum cleaner car, and he had two high performance go-kart motors mounted horizontally with big fans, and then he had skirts on the side of the car, and these fans just sucked the car down to the track, and he would, those cars would finish number one for the season, and then they would be banned, and he'd come out with something else. But this is his son, and he had this go-kart track in Oxnard for about 30 years, and recently he put about $250,000 into the track. He has legitimate racing curbs. He widened it, and it's I don't know how long it is. But it's ideal mini track, or it was. Tight little turns, real technical course. I think I could go maybe 55 or 60 on the straightaway.
Oh wow.
Porsches and the BMWs could do maybe 70. Uh,
Hmm.
but it was a great track, and I used to go there, oh, 5 or 6, 7 times a year, and he closed. The property owner didn't renew his lease after he spent all
Man,
the money on the track. It was just a shame, but it was the ideal mini track. Yeah.
man, sad. I know when I first moved here, I was like, I'm finally gonna be able to like race my mini, and there's got to be a ton of like events in there.
There's
I feel like
nothing
all of them, nothing here.
else. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for a long time. But I did actually see recently. I think it was supposed to be this weekend. Ventura County Fairgrounds was supposed to be having some sort of autocross event. So I was gonna start looking it up again. Granted, my car is in pieces, but
What
when
you
I
got
put it
going
back
on?
together.
What's
What was that?
what's going on with the car?
After I took that road trip, my there's two. Both my master cylinders were kind of acting up, and I was just trying to get it together to leave. And the I swapped out the brake master cylinder for a brand new one, and it was working great. Side note for other things that were happening, I'll get into that later. But the clutch master that I swapped in was a pretty good condition new one, but it wasn't leaking, and but it was, I think, failing inside, so it wasn't. It caused some issues, I think, shifting, and my synchros basically went out. So I pulled the engine when I
Oh,
got back
you're
home.
having trouble with your synchros. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't shift into like second or first unless I was like at a dead stop. So it was I tried everything and nothing. Couldn't get it to. So I pulled it out and I was gonna swap in some straight cuts or something. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
But
that's
yeah, so because
well,
I want to start doing some racing this year. I've been, that's like a goal of mine. I've always wanted to do some sort, whether it's just autocross or a cool little go kart track like that. But yeah, like the big performance days are like 2 hours away. So I don't
yeah.
have a truck and trailer, so that's a tough haul in the mini.
Car, and then if you break your car at the track, then it's an
Right.
$1,100 tow home. Yeah. No,
Mm-hmm.
that's a real problem.
Yeah. Well, it's 2 hours in like a normal car, so cruising on the mini and
Yeah. Right.
two and a half, three maybe.
Yeah. I took Rosebud to Willow Springs one time, and early on in after it had just been built, and
Mm-hmm.
it was I'd like to try it again because I was so new to the car. Um, I just it was a scary experience. I mean that's a big fast track.
Right.
You have a lot of fast cars, going 140 down the backstretch. And it's out in the desert and it's sand and there's wind. And so all the corners, the wind just blows the sand away. And so you've got like a 2 foot drop off if you drop a tire off the apex.
Yikes.
I know, yeah. And then the track is really rough. I mean, I went through a set of Yokohama 032s. Two, I probably wore them 2/3 of the way down, just one track there.
Yikes.
So
Yikes. Yeah, I've always wanted to try. I think Vera does a an event there maybe.
maybe, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, so
What
we'll
I've
see.
never, what I've never done is I've never gone through a sweeper at 70 miles an hour and drifted. I the, the tracks I've been on and the mountain roads and the back roads and things it's 35, 40 miles an hour. You
Mhm.
apex and you grab a lower gear and then you go. But I just I watch YouTube and I see Nick Swift, sliding sideways around these corners. I want to do that, and I've never done that. So
I've
maybe
unintentionally done that before, so
oh,
I, I-
intention is not.
unintentionally you can imagine how I felt.
Yeah, I do know.
It was I had just adjusted my rear drums, and I think I had new shoes in there too. And it had just rained, a few weeks before, so the canyons were, a little muddy, dusty type of thing. And I was coming around a corner, and I started applying the brakes before the corner,
Of
and right like on the entrance, there's just like a slightest of dips, so my foot kind of just tapped the brake ever so slightly too hard, locked like the rear brakes, and I was just like, oh.
yeah.
It was
You know,
sketchy.
I really struggle trying to get my brake bias right. I've got a front and a rear circuit for the brakes, so it's a twin master cylinder.
Hmm.
I was just locking up the rears way before the fronts. I've got discs on the front, and I've got the super fins on the back, but the backs were just locking up way before the front, just in
Hmm.
straight line, which is not terrible, but on a corner you certainly don't want that.
Right.
So I got a bias bar for the master cylinders, and I biased the rear all the way off and biased the front all the way on, and I was still locking them up. And
Hmm.
And then I got a bias valve that's in the cabin, in the cockpit, right by my right knee, and that I can further bias the front and the rear. So I had the rears completely unbiased and the front on all the way. I was still locking up. And I saw, I think on Mini Mania's forum, someone talking about different cylinder sizes, wheel brake cylinder sizes.
Huh. Okay.
And I think ours are 5/8, and I think they suggested half inch. And I did
Hmm.
that. And now I can slam on the brakes and I get four black skid marks on the pavement.
Hmm.
Um,
Dang.
they're
Nice.
they're it's real rear happy. I mean it those rear brakes want to lock up.
That's weird. Hmm. Yeah, mine never really. I've never really locked up except for that one moment. But I don't know.
Yeah, that doesn't sound.
I don't. I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, it wasn't fun, so I wasn't. I'm not trying to do it again.
I had a friend.
Um.
I had a friend that lived at on Malibu Canyon Road, and he said in the '80s, every weekend there'd be a 911 just spinning off the one of the corners. You know,
Yeah,
well, that's the beauty of a front wheel drive car. It could make you look like you're a much better driver
it's
than you are.
true.
If you
It's
don't have
true.
the X or you go in too hot, you just back off, and it's just like a go-kart. It's sliding and then it just comes back.
Yep.
With a conventional car, especially an early 911, once that back end steps out, that's the end of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even the Mini, it's so nimble and easy to drive. You feel like
Yeah,
a
you feel much better,
you
much better.
feel so confident in it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm actually good or if the car is just good and set up proper. It's
Well, one of the things is the perception of speed. It seems like you're going much faster than you are.
that's true.
There's
That is true.
there's a gated community near where I live that it's through a canyon, Hope Ranch. I don't know if you're familiar with the neighborhood, but the homes start at 10 million and they go up. But it's just this beautiful little canyon, windy road. The speed limit is 35 to 45. Big oak trees shading, tight little turns. And I remember early on when I had Rosebud, I was just pushing it, through the turns, just to see where that edge of adhesion was. And I was going through the canyon, and I was bipping the throttle for the downshifts and hitting the apex, and the tires were right on the edge of adhesion, and my hands were cramping because I was gripping the steering wheel so tight. And I look at my mirror, and here's a gardener in a pickup truck with a load of lawnmowers in the back. He's right in my bumper. So
That's epic.
the perception of speed is
It's yeah, especially like our cars, like we said, they're so loud. There's vibrations, and it's just
yeah,
the engine's just revving to the moon, and you're just like you think you're going so fast, and
some
then it's
kind of
like oh
Prius is on your bumper, giving you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny. That's too good. Michael, any other projects going on, or the Mini's the one and only, the forever?
Mini's the one and only automobile wise. It's ironically Rosebud isn't here today. She's in
Ooh.
the shop.
Uh-oh.
The thing is, I don't know if you've experienced it, but there's no one will work on these cars. No one will. There's no one will touch them. I mean, I'll call somebody, and no, no, I'm going to decline. I'm not gonna do that. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. So I day before yesterday, I went for a drive, and I got about halfway out the driveway, and the engine stopped, and then smoke started billowing out from the dashboard, which
Nice.
never a good
Never a good sign.
sign. And I looked at what I could. I wiggled and jiggled some wires. I cleaned some contacts. I got the multimeter out and I checked some voltage here and there. And I couldn't figure out the wire that melted. First of all, I don't know why it melted. I didn't see a short, and it
Yeah.
just disappears into the loom. So and I tried to find the end of it with the multimeter, and I couldn't. So I begged this guy. He's a retired British mechanic. He mostly does uh, concourse judging. He'll get a letter from a concourse in Europe, and he'll give him a stipend and buy his airplane ticket, and
Wow.
he'll jump on the plane and go judge a race. And occasionally, if you beg him enough, he'll work on your car. Well, he's working on my car right
Well, hopefully it's something silly, like you said, a connection somewhere that you couldn't find.
now. I hate taking the car to the shop anyhow because I'm afraid the mechanic's going to sit in the seat with a box cutter in his back pocket, and he's going to slam open the door into another car or something. So
I know, I know. I mean, there's a few spots like in SoCal that you could take your Mini to, but yeah, it's like if I can, I'm fixing it.
yeah, right.
And whether it sits for a couple months like my car is doing right now, but but yeah, it's like it's not that I don't trust anybody, it's just I don't trust anybody.
Exactly.
I don't know how else to put it, you know what I mean?
Right.
So Michael, have you seen the show before? Are you ready for the Patty probe?
The patty probe. I forgot about the patty probe.
The
Yeah,
Patty probe.
let's do
For
that.
those that don't know yet, if this is your first episode, just quick questions about minis that we typically blabber on about, but they're just some fun little questions. The first is, what is your favorite mini variant?
Probably the estate, the Woody. Um, yeah, that's as charming as our cars are. That's even more charming. I don't know that I would like to drive it every day. It's probably not as high performance as ours are, um, but they look great. So yeah,
Have you seen that one? And I'm not sure if it's a Swift Tune car or if it was a who built it. I'm drawing a blank on who built it, but it's like a SU carb kind of race car, and it's called Splinter, I believe, and
no,
it's the Woody wagon, but it's a race mini, and it's super. I'll send it to you after the show. It's awesome.
I might have seen it
It's
run. Is it red?
it's red, yeah.
Yeah, I might have seen that on the track on some YouTube videos. Yeah,
Yep. You probably have. It's super cool.
yeah, yeah. That's neat.
Let's see here. You daily drive yours, so what's the weirdest thing that you've ever hauled or biggest thing?
It's not much of a hauler. It's
Yeah, exactly.
it's got
That's why it's impressive that you drive it all the time.
yeah, it's got a 6-point roll cage in it, so the back seat is inaccessible.
It pretty much hauls you.
Pretty much, yeah. I would say I would say a 50-pound sack of fertilizer in the driver's the passenger floor well.
That's good.
That was that.
What is your favorite mini modification? You've done a ton of them, so either one that you've done or one that you might want to do in the future.
Well, I think probably high lows. I think that the stance of the car um, means everything. I mean, I can look at a bone stock Mark One, beautiful, beautiful car, but as it rolled out of the factory, it looks tall and spindly and top heavy, just because it's not low enough. So I would say the ability to lower the car to the height that looks good to your eye,
I
and
agree. I That's like probably my number one thing, and it's so affordable for minis to
yeah,
get the high lows, and
right.
it's man, it transforms. You don't even have to change the wheels, but just
No,
dropping it
it
down just a little bit,
changes the look completely.
it does. It does.
Yeah.
It makes it look mean. It looks good.
Right. I typically overdo most things, and I of course overdid the lowering. I've got, I mean, literally, there was a time it was so low that I couldn't run over an avocado. I would, it would, it would,
Drag it.
it would make guacamole when the sway bar hit. Yeah. And once I was playing with my dog in the garage, we were playing with a tennis ball, and we couldn't find the tennis ball. And I looked under the mini, and it was stuck.
Just wedged underneath there.
You know, so I've jacked it up a bit since then, so it's a little bit.
Let's see, 12 or 10 inch, 12 inch, or 13-inch wheels.
Oh, 10. 10 all day long.
All day. Did you ever have 12s or
No,
13s on yours?
no, never did.
Never. Do you have a favorite wheel model that you finally chose?
Yeah, I've got I think it's a GB. I think that's who manufactures. It's made in Britain, Great Britain.
Hmm.
It's a three-piece. It looks like a mini light spoked wheel, but but it has a ring of Allen head bolts around it, small ones, and so it's a three-piece. I really like it. Everyone says that you have to have these tires hand mounted, right? You've probably heard that for years. Can't just
Hmm.
take it to a tire shop, and I found a tire shop that would hand mount them, and I run Yokohama Advent 03 032s, and I get maybe 7,000 miles on them. They're pretty soft compound. So this
Yeah.
shop has changed a lot of tires and wheels for me. I bring in the tires and wheels for them, and they change them out. And I always remind them, hand mount them, please. Well, one time I forgot, and they just butchered two of the tires, just two of the wheels. Just,
Oh,
I could see them maybe butchering one,
right.
but why would you put the second one, Sheen, once you've
And
ruined?
keep doing it.
And
Yeah.
by ruined, I mean they were like, they just bent them out like a can opener. And then the big gouge and big rolls of aluminum, as they were gouging the outside rim. And I just, oh my God, you ruined and these wheels, I got them, they were brand new, although they were about 10 or 15 years old, and I got them off eBay. And I loved them, and I've never seen them anywhere else. And so the tire shop owner said, "Well, I'll pay to have them fixed. You can have them fixed." And they wanted the shop in town wanted $1,000 a wheel to fix it. And
Oof.
the tire guy said, "I'm good with that." I said, "Well, this is my daily driver too. I'm going to need a rental car." So you know, he got me a rental car, and the wheels sat at the
He was
shop.
probably like, "This isn't your daily driver."
Yeah, this this cost him about 5 grand, or would have. Seriously.
Oh.
After 3 months, the wheel guy said, "No, you know what? After all, I can't do these 10 inches." And I got a hold of the company that makes them in Great Britain, and they weren't making them any longer, but they still had all the tooling, and they made me 4 new wheels. I couldn't. I had to have
You
four.
got it. Yeah, yeah. Might as well.
That's the shiny new ones in the back. And I think they were pretty reasonable. I think I paid maybe um, I want to say $1,000 for all four, and they're beautiful.
Wow.
I love them. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, they are. And like I said, I've never seen them before either. You've
yeah,
said that. They're really cool.
yeah.
Really cool. If you could have a drink, coffee, beer, tea with one mini celeb, who would it be?
Well, of course, Patty would be the standard answer, but
Hmm.
unfortunately, we can't do that any longer. I would say Nick Swift. Yeah,
It's a good one.
yeah.
Yeah, he seems like a really cool, fun guy, and clearly has been around the mini community for a long time. So I'm excited to see if I can get him on the show and hear a little bit about his mini history.
Ask him about the longevity of his engines.
I'm gonna try to get every secret out of him, see how much he can give us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm here for the mini community.
I appreciate it.
Michael, I appreciate you being on. Is there anything that you want to plug? If you want people to buy some stickers on your
No,
Facebook page,
please nobody buy anything. Then I gotta ship it, and I got no. Please,
it's more hassle than it.
the copy that goes along with the mug and the T-shirt and the read the copy. The copy's funny, I think,
Okay.
but don't buy anything, please.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I appreciate you being on, and catch you guys on the next one.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.